Now with all of that out of the way, it's time to add icons and a splash screen to the application. Splash screen is that loading screen users see whilst the app is booting up. For this we can use a package, at least for the icons, because normally adding such icons would be pretty cumbersome. You would have to manually add icons for different screen sizes, and that's pretty annoying. With this package, you only need to provide one base icon, and it will automatically create and configure icons for all kinds of different devices and even Android versions, because for Android there are different kinds of icons you can create based on the version your users are running. So search for Flutter Launcher icons, and you should find this entry on pub.dev. And then under the installing tab, you learn how to install that. In the README tab, you can learn all about the usage and configuration. But let's simply use it. Go to your pubspec.yaml file, and there add it to the dev dependencies. Thus far, we always added packages to dependencies. These are packages which our app really uses during runtime. This is a package, on the other hand, which we only use during development time when we create these icons. It should not be part of our final app bundle. It should not be mixed into our app code, so to say. And that's why we have this dev dependencies key, which defines dependencies we only need during development and which should not be included in the final app. So with that added here, now, and that's something you learn in the official docs, you can set up a configuration in your pubspec.yaml file for this package. Add it on the same level as dev dependencies, so not as a dependency, but on the same level, and name it flutter_icons, like that. Then add a new entry, indented by one level, so by 2 white spaces. And here set Android to true and iOS to true. That simply tells this package to create both Android and iOS icons. Next, you need to set an image path to your base icon. And right now you of course don't have a base icon. So let's change that. For that, you can add a new folder, for example, dev_assets if you want to, like this. And then drag 2 files which you find attached to this video in the icon zip file into this folder. The places PNG and the places adaptive PNG files. Drag them into the dev assets folder, and then go back into the pubspec.yaml file. And now here, under image path, you add a string with double quotes and point at dev assets / and then places PNG, and also add an adaptive icon background now. That will be a background color. Adaptive icons are special Android icons which are used in newer versions of Android, which give you these rounded app icons. And there you define a background that could be a color which you define with #191919 using a hex code, like this. And also give it a foreground, and that's your icon, the icon image. So foreground, and then that's also a string pointing at dev assets / places adaptive. With that, this package will automatically generate you different Android icons for different Android versions, so that whichever version your users are using, they are having a nice icon for your app. It will also generate icons for iOS, of course. Now with that, on the package README, in the package README, you'll learn which command to run to generate these icons. It's this command. We don't need that extra flag. You would only need that if you set up this configuration in a separate file and not in the pubspec.yaml file, which we haven't. So let's simply copy that command and then go into the terminal here in your project folder, copy it in. It's flutter pub run flutter_launcher_icons : main. And this will now generate these icons based on the base icons we copied in here and automatically configure your Android and iOS project to use these icons. Now these are the icons. In the Android folder, for example, you'll find that res folder here, and in there a bunch of new drawable folders have been added. These hold your different icon versions. You shouldn't change these files directly. Now let's work on the launch screen as well. And for Android, you do that in the res folder, in that main folder, in Android app source main res. And there in the drawable folder like this, there you have the launch background XML file. This is the file where you configure what users see when your app is booting up. You can configure this in all kinds of ways, and you can simply Google for Android splash screen to find tons of tutorials on how you may configure this. Here I'll simply comment out this entry here, this item entry, to add an image on the splash screen. And there I'll point at drawable, not mipmap, but drawable, and then splash icon. And this is pointing at an image which we currently don't have though. Attached, however, you find a splash zip file in which you find a bunch of drawable folders, which are named like the drawable folders you have here. And you can simply drag the splash icon PNG file you find in my drawable folders into your drawable folders. So the one from the drawable HDPI folder, drag it into your HDPI folder, and so on. So let me quickly do that for all the attached icons. And once you did that, also scroll down and go to the values folder and there to colors XML, and make sure you add such a new entry there. A new entry with the color key where the name is splash and the value is hash 191919. It's the same color as for this one. I'm simply managing this as two separate colors so that we could change them independently. This color is a color I'll refer to as a background color on the launch background here, by removing this item up there and adding a new item with the opening and a closing tag like this. And in between, add a color item which is self-closing by adding a slash, a forward slash in front of the closing angle bracket. And there you should add Android:color and set it equal to @color/splash like this. This should create a nice looking splash screen for Android. We also have all the icons set up. Let's now test this on Android. And for this, I'll launch the app on an emulator. And there we should see our splash screen and of course the icon and the app name we set up. Now here's the splash screen while the app is booting up. And during development, this boot up process always takes a bit longer than once you build the app for production. So for your users, that will be faster. Now let's close that app here. And if you open up the app drawer, you now also should see your app icon here and Great Places as a title. So that's working as it should. That's great. Let's now do the same for iOS. The icons have been added by the package. Let's now add a splash screen, again through Xcode, by opening up our project through the runner.exe workspace file. And there, go to the assets.exe assets file here in that project folder view, and you find the launch image entry there. Now simply drag the splash icon, which you find attached in the iOS and the splash iOS zip file, into the three slots you see here. Same icon in all three slots. You could provide three different icons with different sizes for different device sizes. You can manually shrink that if you want. I'll use the same icon. And then go to launch screen storyboard here. And this is the launch screen your app will have. Again, if you want a smaller icon, you need to shrink the image assets you're using in here. Now in launch screen storyboard, you can also click on the white area here so that view is selected here on the left. And then go to the attribute inspector here on the right with this icon. And you can now choose a background color. And here I want to use 191919 to have the same color as I have as a background on the icon, so that this is my iOS launch screen. Now let's run this, and for that I connected my real iPhone again. So let me press the play button. And if this fails here, simply go back into your project and in the terminal here, run flutter build iOS to build your iOS version. Once this process finished, try running this again, and this time it should succeed. And now here's my icon coming up. The Great Places text is also there, as you can see. And now if I launch the app, we also see our launch screen here. So this is now the app running on my iOS device with the configuration we set up.